So I hope you'll do everything you possibly can to not only try to light that fire in the person next to you, but to try to make sure that we elect noble leadership that will inspire America to be what she can still be. And one of those people is Mike Huckabee. So if you'd welcome Mike Huckabee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, you're already standing. That makes it easy to leave, so don't. What an honor it is to be here in Arizona tonight for one of the greatest public servants in all of America, Trent Franks. You know, sometimes if you watch my television show, I pick on Congress just a little bit. Just a little bit. And usually they deserve it. But when I say anything I do about what they do wrong, I'm never including Trent Franks in that, because I don't know of anybody who works harder and who works with a greater level of personal integrity than your Congressman Trent Franks, and it's the reason that I'm here tonight, because I love this guy. I mean that. There's not just an enormous amount of authenticity in Washington. And it's kind of rare when you find somebody who is the same backstage as he is on stage, who is the same at home as he is when he goes to Washington. And when he goes to Washington, he doesn't act like a big shot. He's still just who he is. And folks, I've seen him in Washington. I've seen him in Arizona. I've been with him backstage, not just here, but in places all over the country at conferences and conventions. And one of the reasons that I admire him so much is the consistency of his character and the clarity of his convictions. And this is a person that you'll never pick up the paper and be shocked to find out how he voted. Because my dad was a pretty simple guy. He taught me some pretty simple things. And one of the things he taught me out of his country wisdom in South Arkansas, he taught me, he said, son, always tell the truth. Because if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said the last time. That's what Trent Franks is all about. I want to tell you tonight, one of the reasons that this election is so important is because we need to keep voices like Trent's in the Congress as a moral compass for this country. If there's any one thing that burdens me, it's that we have lost our moral compass in this nation. I know a lot of people are pessimistic about America and where we are. Some people are pessimistic about where we're headed. I'm pessimistic about where we are. I am not pessimistic about where we're headed as long as people like you will join together and get the kind of people elected that will put us back on the track. We've been here before, folks. This country has been in trouble before. And there have been many times we didn't think we would be able to survive. I grew up in the 60s and remember the times when, why, goodness gracious, our college campuses were places where people went to have a riot rather than to get an education. We saw people burning down public buildings. There was disrespect for law enforcement. Clearly they needed Joe Arpaio back then, or they wouldn't have had that kind of attitude. But we saw so many things during that period of time. And then during the 70s, we saw a president resign. We saw the horrors of OPEC squeezing us with energy and making it so that we stood in line to get gasoline and the price was beyond unreasonable. We saw what happened when Jimmy Carter was president. The country went into a deep funk, understandably, with interest rates that were like 22%. And if you could buy a home and get it for 14% interest, you went and said, lock that in as quick as you can. Does anybody remember that? Am I the only old person here? And a lot of people said, America's done, we're finished, we can't come out of this, but we did. And it has to do with leadership. Trent Franks is a person who brings not only conviction as to what he believes, but he brings the leadership to get it done. I don't know if a lot of people in Arizona know, but if you're watching what's happening in Israel, and you watch the extraordinary courage of the Israelis as they try to defend themselves against a terrorist organization. And it seems like that our president and our Secretary of State and our folks at the State Department don't know how to know the good guys from the bad guys. Well, let me explain to them. The bad guys are the terrorists, and the good guys are the people who believe in freedom of speech and elected a democratic form of government. Now, what you may not know is that there was one congressman who pretty much single-handedly fought for and acquired the funding for what is now the celebrated Iron Dome defense that has literally saved thousands of people's lives in Israel. His name is Trent Franks. He is the reason Israel has the Iron Dome. My first trip to Israel was 41 years ago in July of 1973, and I've been going back regularly since. I was there in June. Very likely I'll be back in a week. I talk to friends there every single day since this conflict has started with Gaza. And I'm reminded of the incredible dangers that they face for their existence. And I thank God for people like Trent Franks, who understand that it's the right thing to do to stand by our friends and to know the difference between our friends and our enemies. Folks, this country cannot survive if we don't know the difference. But I tell you, I'm not pessimistic about the future of America because I believe America's people are still good. I think we have some unfortunate folks leading the nation right now, but they're not going to be there forever. And when we show them the door and send them on their way, they really won't know a lot of difference between what they're doing now and what they're doing then, because it's vacation time now, it'll be vacation time then. But maybe we'll have some people who really go to take care of the people's business and do it in the people's way. But I think what America needs is a revival of its own heart and spirit and a reminder of who we are. You see, the reason we're lost and disoriented is because we have leaders that don't understand who we are as a people, where we've come from. And I want you to know that history is to a culture what memory is to the individual. If you were to wake up tomorrow and you had no idea what your name was and who you were and who your parents or your grandparents were or where you'd come from and some things about your family, and you woke up and went to the breakfast table and there were these people sitting there, you didn't know that there was a wife and kids because you didn't have any memory of them. You would be lost and disoriented and confused. It is your ability to look back at where you've come from that gives you the capacity to have a sense of order. And so, as the memory is to the individual, history is to a culture. And when we do not know, or we disassociate ourselves with our own history, we end up as a nation lost and disoriented, filled with chaos. The reason we're in trouble today is because we've got a lot of people in our nation who do not know our history. They do not know that this country was not founded by just some politicians who wanted to keep taxes low, though that was a part of it. This country was founded by people who first got on their knees before a holy God and then on their feet to fight for the freedom and liberty for their families. This is a country that should never have existed, and apart from the providence of God, it would not have. I want you to imagine that a bunch of farmers and merchants and just regular people without military training took the guns from their mantle. Those were weapons better suited for hunting varmints than taking on the British Army. There's no way in the world they should have been able to create this ragtag group of people and somehow challenge the most well-financed, best-trained, even best-dressed army in the known world at the time. How did they do it? My dear friend, there is no explanation other than that God heard the prayers of people who believed that the religious liberty that they desired for their family and the freedom that they wanted for the generations to come was a prayer that would be answered, and it has been. In May, my wife and I celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. We've been married 40 years. Thank you. Now, what you were supposed to do is say, "Wow, you don't look that old." That wasn't a laugh line. No, we've been married 40 years, and the fact is we decided, okay, we're going to celebrate with a special trip, and we had never been to China. We'd been all over the world in many places and decided we'd go. And so we went. It was a fascinating place, and I enjoyed many parts of it. I had been reluctant to go because, frankly, I'm not a big fan of the Chinese government. But I got there, and here's what I came back realizing. China is becoming a lot more like America used to be. But sadly, America is becoming a lot more like China used to be. But I was able to say, well, at least their government is still rewriting history and changing things. I talked to people who were under the age of 35. They didn't know what happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989. They never heard of it because it's unlawful. You get put in jail to even talk about it openly. And I said, boy, I'm sure glad our government would never rewrite our history. You know, I saw the contrast of a government that is trying to open up more capitalistic opportunities so people can start businesses and grow and build the opportunity for people to move up the ladder. And I thought, boy, I'm sure glad that our government would never let itself get in the way of people moving up the economic ladder by creating overtaxation, regulation, litigation. And then I realized, but no, that's exactly what we're doing. When I think of all the people in this country who would like to have a job but can't get one, not because the economic opportunities aren't there, but because the government has made it impossible for people to start a business, made it impossible for people to go to work, because the cost of just creating a job here has become so completely onerous that people move somewhere else. Look, I grew up dirt poor in South Arkansas. Didn't realize how poor I grew up till I got old enough to see how other people lived. My father never graduated high school. His father didn't graduate high school, and his father before him didn't graduate high school. The fact is, no male upstream from me had ever graduated from high school, much less gone to college. Folks, I'm telling you, I have lived the American dream. When I was 8 years old, my dad said, "Now, son, the governor going to come down here to our part of the state, going to dedicate a lake. He'll make a talk. I'm going to take you down there to hear the governor make a talk. Because, son, you may live your whole life. You may never meet a governor in person." My dad couldn't have imagined that one day his son could have become the 44th governor of a state. But in America, those kind of things can still happen. I'm so grateful to live in this country, because in most places on this earth, wherever it is that you start, that's where you stay. And you're stuck where you started. In America, it's not like that. But it's getting to the place where if we don't make some serious changes in how we understand the flow of the economy, we will be stuck where we started. And I want kids who grew up like I did to be able to have hopes and dreams and aspirations and not feel like they can't come out of the hole because the government has made it impossible for them to move forward by getting a good education and working hard and being able to dream the dreams and live the dreams. And this country is far, far too blessed for us to sit back and let it die. And the reason that it's so important to elect people like Congressman Trent Franks and keep him in office is because his is one of those rare voices that clearly understands not only why he went, but he understands what his mission is when he gets there. Folks, I'm telling you this, Trent Franks doesn't need Washington, but Washington needs Trent Franks. Please make sure he goes back. When I think about what you can do, and a lot of people have told me from time to time in the years I've been involved in politics, they'll say, boy, I tell you what, I would never want to run for office. That's a brutal business. I would say to you, yes, it is. When people have asked me, what's it like? I said, well, imagine playing football against some NFL boys and you don't get any pads or helmet. It's like sticking your face in the blades of a fast-moving fan. If you don't like the sight of your own blood, don't run for office because you're going to see plenty of it. It's a tough business. It's not something that is all pleasure and thrill and joy. It's tough. It's tough on your family. And a lot of times people will say to me, I would never do what Trent Franks has done and run for Congress. Some of you probably here tonight said the very same thing. May I say this to you? You don't have to run for Congress. He's willing to do that. He's willing to make that long commute from here to Washington every week and go there and vote the way you sent him to vote and come back here and listen to you. And that's what he does. It's why he's such an effective congressman. He spends hours and days away from his family and makes extraordinary sacrifices to continue to serve. He's not asking you to get on the ballot, but I'm telling you, and he's not even saying this, but I am. Please don't tell him you're behind him, because I used to hear that all the time. Governor, we're behind you. And I thought, boy, that's good, until I realized what they meant by that was, we're behind you, way behind you. Here's what you need to say to him. Congressman, we're with you. We're not behind you, we're with you. We're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Now, I realize that tonight you came, nobody forced you to come, and I want to say thank you for doing it. I hope that you will do something for Trent Franks. Number one, you'll pray for him. And I don't say that tritely, I mean that with all my heart. I'm not ashamed to say that I still think America is not going to get a lot better until its people pray and ask for God's intervention. Pray for the people who serve. Secondly, you can't help him if you're not registered to vote, and it won't help to register if you don't go vote. I know it sounds silly. Why would you come to a political rally if you don't vote? But I don't want to leave anything left unsaid. Please, for heaven's sakes, if you're a Trent Franks supporter, make sure you're registered and make sure you vote. Now, if for some ridiculous reason you are not a Trent Franks supporter, then I just wanted to let you know, just you, that the election has been moved to December and it will not be necessary for you to go to the polls at all. And I would even tell you what we used to tell people in Arkansas, vote early and vote often. And Lord knows they did it there. Now, in addition to praying and voting, I ask you this. Make a contribution to the campaign for his reelection. I'm not asking you to do what you can't do, because if you can't give the maximum amount of $2,600 per federal candidate, don't do it. But $5, $10, $25, $50. And let me tell you why I ask you to do that. Number one is because campaigns cost an extraordinary amount of money. I never will forget, I'd go around when I was running for president, and people would say, you need more TV ads. Yeah, I think I do. I'm getting my brains beat out here. Will you help me? No, I'm not going to give you any money, but you need some more TV ads. Well, folks, they cost money. And it costs money to run a campaign. So I'd like to ask you to invest. Number one, because the campaign needs money. And number two is because if you're invested, I don't have to worry, but that you'll vote for him and you'll get your friends and your family and your neighbors and people you work with to do it. Even if it's $10 or $25 or $50, you know what's realistic for you. But make an investment somewhere. Take part of the ownership. Buy some stock in the congressional campaign for somebody that you respect enough to come to this rally and stand on your feet for this period of time and say, I'm not just a person who says, go get him, Trent. I'm a person who wants to say, I am with you, Trent, and I'll be with you all the way, because he's with you. And you just don't realize how rare it is to have a congressman that you can truly count on and depend upon. And this is a congressman that you can count on and you can depend on. Tonight as I leave you, I want to encourage you not to lose heart. I don't want you to think that America is done. I don't want you to get discouraged and say that it doesn't matter who we elect. Doesn't matter whether we contribute or not. It doesn't matter because this country cannot make it another generation. Please don't say that. And let me tell you why. Because this country's conclusion is not up to just us. If we believe, and you cheered when I said this a moment ago, that this country was the creation of God's providence, then you have to also believe that until He's finished with us, He's not finished with us. Years ago, when the Arkansas Razorbacks used to be winning in basketball, and Lord knows it's been a long time, but back in the day, when they were contending for and actually won the national championship, it was the day before you had all the ESPN channels, and so we only had the local affiliates from the networks, and because of the rules in the Southeast Conference, we weren't able to watch all the games like it is now. And so they would have one game. However, if the station taped the game and played it back later, they were allowed to do that. So the local ABC affiliate in Little Rock would tape every Arkansas Razorback basketball game, and then they would play it after the 10 o'clock news. And the sportscaster would come on just before the game would be played, and he would say, now we're going to tell you the final score of the game. If you don't want to know the score, turn the volume of your television set down, and you can watch it as if it is live, and you won't know until the end of the game how it turned out. And I'm thinking, I don't know if anybody was stupid enough to go turn the volume down, but not me, brother. I turn it up. I want to find out how this thing turned out. And here's why. Because if I knew that we won the game, I'm popping popcorn, I'm putting my feet up, and I'm watching that sucker to the bitter end. Because I know we win. You see, I'm not worried. And if it comes late in the second half and we're down by 11 points and there's 2 minutes left, I'll look around and I'll say, don't worry, y'all. We're going to come out of this thing. We're going to win this, dude. Yeah. Now, if I found out that they lost, I'm not staying up to 1 o'clock in the morning to go to bed frustrated and not sleep all night because we lost. I wanted to know the outcome, because the outcome determined what I was going to be doing over the next little while. And the reason I'm telling you that is because, you see, I'm convinced that this great nation of ours is truly an exceptional country, unlike any that has ever existed in the history of mankind. And I believe that we were put on this earth for a very special purpose, to be, as Ronald Reagan so brilliantly quoted from John Milton, a city on a hill. And I believe that's who we are. And until He's finished with us, it's not our place to be quitters. It's our place to be rushing toward the finish line and to do everything we can so that our children and our grandchildren have as great of an America as we have been so blessed to enjoy. We can't do it without the leadership of people like Trent Franks. But Trent Franks can't do it without the willingness of folks like you to love this country enough to send good people and to keep us free. Thank you for being here. God bless you. And let's keep Trent Franks in the Congress of the United States of America. Thank you and God bless.